This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions. Hi, this is Joe Rabil, and I'm going to give you a stock market update as of the close on Thursday for Friday morning. So we've got a situation going on finally where the market's trying to rally here. We had kind of a down morning and most of the day, but it had been it started to kind of creep back this afternoon and ended up closing positive. So I'm going to show you what I think is going on here. We've had some positive developments take place on some bigger picture items. I'm sorry, some negative items take place on some bigger picture items, and we have some pretty interesting things taking place from a short-term standpoint. So let's take a look. I'm going to use the S&P, the spider, to go through this. Let's just start with the monthly, as I always do. And one of the things that, I think is worth noting is that we closed the month with a pretty ugly bar. Okay, we ran up and touched the 18-month line and then came all the way down and closed down here with a nice topping tail in place. What that tells me, I mean, we already had this and we knew there was resistance up there, but now we have a little bit more evidence that there's a pretty big problem overhead. All right. Now we're not in a situation where I think this can turn on a dime and do something significant to the upside. So that's to me, that's kind of the least likely scenario. Is getting through this in earnest right now, just based on what happened. Because although this doesn't look great. If you go and look at a lot of stocks, they actually have 18 months that have rolled over, and they're showing, pretty strong resistance there. And I just view that as a pretty big negative from that standpoint. Now, on the weekly chart, we had the 200-day, which is a 40-week. Okay, so I use a 40 because it's the 200 on the next lower time frame. So in a weekly chart, the 40 is a 200-day, and on the monthly chart, the 40 is a 200-week. Both are pretty important lines when you go back and look at them. Now, what we've got is this rally phase that's been going on. So if you bring you up to speed, we broke this downtrend line and we rallied up into resistance in the next downtrend line and the 40-week, and now we're pulling back. And what I've been saying is I wanted to see how this would pull back, and I was kind of hoping for this to be cupping around and almost rising as this pulled back, but the pullback was too harsh. So we've pulled back to the right zone, though, right around this 3,900 area on the S&P. 38 to 3,900 is support, but we do have a little bit of overrun. Now, what I'm looking for is we have one more day left, so Friday's coming in. I mean, if Friday can be a good day, we could get this back closer to the 18-week line, and this would look like a pinch play developing, right? So I don't want to get too excited about this. All right, because I don't like the way this pulled back. I think that was a little too harsh. I think the highest probability for this market, based on what I'm seeing, is some kind of a range forming. But if we're going to be in a range and we're not just going to have a little minor rally and then get really hit hard, we need a pretty good rally off this low. So I want to first of all see Friday be a decent day. I'd like to close the week with a little bit of a tail here. That would give me a little bit more of a feeling that potentially we could get some kind of a rally that could stabilize things and maybe turn this into a range, a sloppy range, but a range. Now, one of the biggest negatives that I see is this ricochet that red came down and kissed green, and it just ricocheted off of it. So that's typically not what we want to be seeing when we want to see some kind of a crisscross or, a green overrun in 25 or something like that to at least show that maybe there's a little sloppiness here and not pure strength. But the fact that this bounced off the green and has moved up, I think is a negative sign, but we don't have any confirmation. Because this is a contraction phase, now we need the opposite to take place. We're going to need this to take place, right? We're going to need a lower high and a lower low in green DI and some form of a higher bottom and a higher high to really confirm that we've got something going again on red DI. In other words, to the downside. So if this rallies up and this comes down, and then we come back down through here, and this comes back through here, then we've got a sign that we're getting ready for a new expansion phase to the downside. So we're pretty far from that. But first order of business is to see what kind of a rally we can garner here. Now, let me tell you the reason why I think this is rallying. If we look at the daily chart, we got stretched away. So we had this move down. We failed at the 18, which was rolling over. Harsh move down, right? And then we came down here, and we have all of this support in this zone here. So that's first thing. The second thing is MACD got down to the 0 line, okay? And the third thing is, look at how far away we've gotten from the 18MA. The 18MA is here and we're here. So whenever you come into support and you're stretched away from your moving average line, your 18MA in that time frame, you should expect support to come in. I mean, that's a really good rule of thumb. If you've got support defined, which I had it defined for to my subscribers, I basically had a big area in here. I actually started at 400, but the thick of it is right in the middle here, right around 3,900. And if, which is kind of where it came back to. So it makes sense that we're trying to rally off the 0 line. It makes sense that we're trying to rally off the support zone. And then the other thing that I want to mention here is what took place on the hourly chart. So we had this move down here and MACD confirmed, but red DI did not. But if you notice, green DI did confirm weakness. This did not turn. This didn't make a higher low. Like this made a lower high, but this made another lower low. But now look at what happened on this one. So we rallied up, hit resistance again, and then went to a new low. Now this time, MACD made a higher low, and red DI made another lower high and a lower low. And we made a higher high now in green, and then just made a higher low. So we've got the contraction phase developed on the hourly chart, which means this should come down some now. This has been really strong, but it looks like it wants to come down based on what I'm seeing here. I'd be inclined to think that we're going to get a decent rally. Now, I want to show you something on a 10-minute chart that showed this happening earlier today. So after lunch, the first thing that happened was we rallied up, and we had this pattern, this counter parallel line pattern where we get MACD going one way and price going the other. And if you notice, the 4 and the 18 are kind of parallel. They're almost overlapping here. And these lines are going up. So that's usually a bullish short-term sign. Now, we were below the gap and everything, so that's not a big deal. But this is where it gets interesting. You see this move up? Look at what green DI did. You see how green DI crossed over and then held. And that happened here as well. So in other words, holding the 18. So when I see that, I go back and look, when was the last time that happened? I mean, you went through this entire down phase and you did not have this happen where green crossed over and held at 25, held above the red, and then turned up again. So I think that was pretty interesting evidence. And now we've got this kind of 25. I mean, the ADX is now above 25 on this time frame. The question is, are we going to lose strength in the buyers on the 10-minute before the hourly can really show? So let's switch this back to an hourly now, because now on the hourly chart, we're dealing with a contraction phase. But in order to turn this time frame into something meaningful, we need this to go up and hold, the green DI to go up and hold while red comes down and fails, right? So we need this to move up and turn up. So it starts on the smallest time frame. Always going to start on a small time frame, and then you can see, okay, we're oversold. So that's where, if you want to be aggressive as a trader, you don't necessarily have to trade off the 10-minute, but you can use that for your entry because you're stretched away on the daily. We had divergence on the hourly, but this is really where the trigger comes in, where green DI kind of kicks in on the low time frame. All right. So how far is this going to go? I mean, I guess I'm inclined to think, just based on the recent action, that we're just going to rally up towards the 18-day and maybe fail at that point. But here's what I'll tell you is that I'm not, if we see real strength here, I'm not going to fight it. I'm not assuming anything because of the way the market's been trading. Essentially, the market's been trading in a way where it's just a flip of the switch. It's either on or off. So it was off here, and then it just turned back on, and then it turned off. And now the question is it turning back on again? Is the light switch turning back on? Are they going to be buyers again? And so we'll know over the next 2 or 3 days if we get any kind of follow through. If this can push up through this 18, then we're going to be back, probably back above the 18 week as well, and probably looking at this resistance zone again and seeing what that's made of. So stay on your toes, as I've been saying. Don't get too married to any real positions and follow. But I'm kind of like looking at it like follow a little yellow brick road, right? I mean, we've got green DI in charge on the 10-minute chart. Can that happen on the hourly before it rolls back over again? Because if it doesn't, if the 10-minute gives it up and green comes back down and red goes back up before the hourly can do anything meaningful in this time frame, then you got to realize that's probably it for the move. But if we can get this to move up and test and hold and green to do the same, then we could probably get a more significant rally to take place. So that's the update for the week. Go ahead and post any questions or comments. Thanks.